Is he place here?
All right, welcome everyone to Zoning Board of Appeals. 7 o'clock, let's start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone. As a reminder, the emergency exits are off to the side and out in the back as well. Restrooms are in the lobby area. If you haven't done it already, please sign in the attendance sheet. And there are business cards at the back table. Feel free to take them. There's also proposed resolutions back there. You're welcome to take and look at those as well. If you haven't done so already, please silence your cell phones, and any conversations that you have that do not pertain to the meeting itself or the current application, please take it out in the lobby. And as far as each application goes, we have exhibits. If there are new exhibits that you have and want us to look at, we'll be happy to look as many as you like. Just be sure that when you use them, whatever it is that you're using, do your very best to identify what picture that you're looking at, and also use whether compass directions. For example, don't say, if you see over here and see over there, it's hard for Amber here to pick up on what it is that you're talking about, so when we review the minutes, it makes sense to us. So if you can identify structures or compass direction, whatnot, the more descriptive words that you can use, the better. With that, first thing I would like to take care of is approval of the October 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them.
I make a motion we approve the October 3rd.
Thank you, Fred. And a second. Thank you, Donna. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thanks so much. All right, first is Chris Barber, 1425 State Route 444.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So, I don't know how many times. You've been here a few times.
Third. This is
Third time.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we were looking at is some clarification and just a quick review. You are going to put the pool, and you're looking for a 10-foot side setback, and currently it's a future deck, and you're looking for an 8-foot setback. And we're looking for some drawings. And I think you submitted them.
Yeah, at this point now, it's going to be a combined project.
Okay.
Because originally when I was looking at getting the pool in the fall, it was going to be kind of one in the fall and one in the spring, summertime. But now we're kind of past pool installation, so it's going to be a all-in-one project at this point.
So what's your target date then for putting the shovel in the dirt and starting the project? In the spring then?
Yeah, the
Okay.
pool came with installation, so it was supposed to be the fall, so I'm hoping I'm first on the list in the spring.
Okay. So you're still looking at the pool being a 10-foot side setback and the deck being 8 feet?
Correct.
And if I understand you correctly, it's multiple reasons why you can't move the pool, which would be 5 feet further north, because where the deck is to be located, it's more for aesthetic purposes and/or...
So I can't get from, so my level is, the top floor is on the main level, and then that's kind of the living area of the house. So I can't get from the main level to the pool. So, I mean, if there's a safety concern or some reason, I have to go down and out around the house. And if I move it, so I've been looking at trying to move it to the northeast. I'm gonna start running close to my drainage lines. I have buried gutter lines and a drain in front of the concrete slab on the south side of the house by the, I think I have it labeled deck, but it's kind of a overhang and a retaining wall.
Okay?
And if I go further north, then I'm gonna have to dig up my patio to run the electric to the pool. And then on the far north is where the sewer, septic lines and tank is.
Okay. That sums it up. Anything else you want to add?
No, I know my neighbor's concern is seeing the pool. So if I have to move it, it's gonna have to go further to the east and further to the north, and it's gonna put it more in her field of view than if I get it where I'm trying to propose it. Where it's kinda in between the houses at this point and compared to behind it further east. But other than that, I have nothing new, so.
All right. Sarah, questions, comments, concerns?
No, actually, I'm fine with it, the way that it's presented. 10 feet from a property line is more than enough if the pool were to break. So there's more than enough from her property line for if there's any drainage concerns or anything like that. So I'm
Yeah,
actually fine with it as presented.
When the houses were built, there is, because hers is up above mine, and where I brought in dirt,
So it's gonna
it
go down
is,
to your-
it is a gully, and then it runs down the hill, so
Yeah. I
it'd
think
have to
10
go,
feet- 10 feet is more than enough.
it'd
I
have to
think,
go
from a
up
property
30
line.
feet to get to her home.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Donna?
The same sentiment. Thank you. Oh, good.
Matt?
I don't know, I'm still kind of in the camp, maybe I wasn't at the second one, I definitely remember the first.
I think you were out the first one, I think you were here for the
I
second
was here the
one.
second, all right, so I was here
Yeah.
for one of the two. It just feels like 8 feet, with the deck is just gonna get, it's just close, right? It's supposed to be 15, and I know you've got a lot of, you can't mess with where the septic tank is and that kind of stuff, I understand that, but to that northeast, I know you mentioned, you might have to change where, a drain goes, or run electric under a patio or something. That might just, to me, is kind of just extra cost associated with trying to put something, a little more in character of the neighborhood and utilize the space. I just feel like you're kind of cramping in on your neighbor to the south, right? You've got a lot of toys outside, you've got your boats, and that's all fine, but it just kind of feels like everything is just getting packed right into that side of the house. 8 feet's pretty close to me. I mean, I know it's not 8 feet to
She
the house.
still has probably 30 feet to her home
And
as well.
that's
Right,
her,
And
what
if
she
it-
decides to do with that
right.
space.
Correct, yeah, I'm fine with
or
it,
not.
it's her place. If
So
the
I don't
land
know.
was flat, it wouldn't be a big deal, but the hillside's my problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel good about allowing it to be 8 feet. And I'm only one vote, but it just seems like 8 when 15 is required is still pretty close. When there's a lot going on in between the two homes, sure, if maybe you had, buy-in from your neighbor, it would help a little bit but it just feels like it's really close. It's gonna be really close.
Have you stopped up to see the,
I
Property?
live, I can walk to your house from where I live. I've driven by it several times.
yeah,
It just seems like it's a very congested area between the two homes there, and it's only just gonna add further congestion. It's just where I'm at with it now. Again, I'm only one
okay,
vote here.
no, that's fine, I understand.
Fred?
So if you made the deck 15 feet off the line, what would it be, 21 feet wide then? Take 7 off of
So probably what I would do is, when I was looking at it, I would probably make it narrower, but then I would go further east towards the golf course. So then I could still try to maintain some square footage for walking around.
Well,
That's why I said move more in her field of view compared to being tucked in between the houses.
well, my deck is 10 feet wide, and it's plenty wide enough, and yours would be more than twice that much. I think you got deck to play with, in my view. And you're crowding the side yard, and then there's still plenty of deck if you did move it.
Yeah, I just don't have any front yard in the backyard is very limited, only because I bought in 30 dump trucks of dirt.
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the width of the deck.
Right, but it's kind of a yard concern for me, because then I just lose my yard.
You know, I've been there.
Yeah.
We went over it.
Yep.
And I gotta feel more like Matt does, that you're asking for really a lot. I would say that you'd make the deck smaller. I would vote for it. But without that, I'm not going to.
Okay.
I gotta balance what,
No, that's fine.
what
I
the
understand.
town wants, and kind of reluctant to move it, I understand
No, I
that.
just, I run
But
into more
it's still
problems.
big, the deck is still big in my
Yeah.
view. Really
Just
big.
kids running around and stuff, I'd like to have some room where they're not gonna accidentally fall into the pool or something.
All right, I think I'm in a similar camp as Matt and Fred, but it's not so much that the pool is 10 feet, it's the size of the deck, and the deck then you need 8 feet to the lot line. We're supposed to get 15, so you're looking at a substantial request for a variance for the deck. You're
Right.
looking for two variances, right? One's for the pool, one's for the deck.
Right, so it'd be 7 feet.
Right. So with a 22 by 28 deck, that's a big deck.
Right,
So you're telling us there isn't much of a way in your mind to make that deck 10 feet to the lot line.
so if I,
I know it's,
to move it another 2 feet, you mean?
if you move the pool 2 feet north, and then you
The
can.
the
then
deck,
it's 10
or
feet.
all of it, or just the deck?
If you're looking at a combined variance request, it's the pool and the deck.
Right,
10 feet.
Yep.
However you do that, I'm sensing that you're going to get more latitude and maybe in a favor of, gee, maybe you're going to get this variance, because it's not so much the pool, it's the deck that's causing the rub, that it's 8 feet. And I understand the lot line is, that's the lot line. And
Yeah.
how it is, it's, you put the pool 10 feet to the lot line, but you need 8 feet for the
right.
deck.
Originally, I had it like 3 feet the first time, so then I moved it over the additional 5.
So it might be one thing if that deck was 8 feet wide and you really didn't have any play to make a deck. It's not going to be 6 feet or 4 feet. That's kind of a useless deck, or it's almost a porch at that point. But a 28-foot wide deck is,
Right. I don't have, the hillside is unusable to me. It's so steep, I can't use it for anything. It's difficult to walk down. If I walk my grandmother down it, I have to walk with her.
I understand it. It doesn't mean you get
So
a deck
that's-
on it.
No, I know, but I'm saying, but then I can use that for actual outdoor area where I'm limited on area that I have.
You got the lay of the land, that's how the land is, and you're making a point, an argument, to say that, gee, I can't really move this pool deck area because the septic system's over there, and if I move it, the electrical is going to it's going to cost money. All those are important factors. But really to say, gee, I have the land there, and I can't use it for anything else, why not just put a deck there, and it really, yeah, I'm just going to put it as close as I can to the lot line because I want to use it. It's almost counterintuitive. It doesn't make a lot of sense just to do it because it's there.
That's fine.
You
Okay.
have neighbors.
No, that's fine. She's never outside. I've never seen her outside.
It's still her property. She can use it
But
however
it's
she wants.
my property that I'm building the deck on, not hers. But that's fine, I understand. Thank you. I understand.
So
I'm good with it. No, I'll build off the property line and pay the extra money, and it'll be spectacular.
I'm not following. You'll build off the property line.
No, I'll build it off of the 15 feet like I'm supposed to.
Did you want to withdraw your
No,
application?
I'd rather just have you vote no, so then it's no, and then I can just move on.
Okay. Then
It's
let's,
something we don't hear very often.
no,
actually.
it's
Well,
not.
I was at this point last week, and I haven't, for weeks, I tried coming up with some kind of,
It is complex, I'll give you that.
something to do, and I can't figure out.
You gotta agree, it's a big deck.
No, I don't disagree.
I wouldn't want a deck that big, actually, but my kids are grown up, so.
I'm concerned that
Nice.
you certainly fear that the board has a job to do. We have a law to
I
follow.
understand.
Okay, all right. So let's look through then the criteria. Well, before we do, does anyone from the public want to speak for or against the application? Go ahead.
I am the barber's neighbor, Lisa Labarge, at 1431 State Route 444. I just wanted to say something that I haven't said before, because I just came across it in the New York guideline book that pertains to zoning board of appeals. When we were talking about substantiality, which you just mentioned, they say it's not just like the difference in the setback, it's the whole magnitude of the variance. And I just wanted to say again, this is a 50 feet length. It goes 50 feet, what he's asking for, and it's 322 square feet. I did the math different for the 10 foot, which is only like 14 feet or 12 feet, and then the other portion is at 8 feet. So it runs for 50 feet.
Well, we're aware of that.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying the whole substantiality,
No, if you want to continue, I will.
No.
He has agreed to comply with the code, so it's be careful, don't poke the bear.
Okay.
I can also put it, if you want to add something else, then certainly you can. Anyone else want to speak for or against the application? Okay, let's run through the criteria. First being, an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of area variance. Before I forget, if I haven't said it before, the Ontario County Planning Board granted, or consider this to be a Class 1 decision. So, to the first criteria, the undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of an area variance. Looking at the application, the applicant wants 10 feet for the pool and 8 feet for the deck. And also, and during the discussion, the applicant is willing to comply with the code by building both the pool and the deck in compliance with the code. Anyone want to add anything to the first criteria? Second, the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. As the applicant had indicated, he is willing to comply with the code, both for the pool and the deck. Anyone want to add anything else to the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is substantial, especially the 8-foot request for the deck. Anyone want to add anything to the third?
I don't agree with it being substantial, because it's a 7-foot variance. So that would be not substantial, it's less than 50%.
It could be 60%, it could be 40%,
But I would think that anything over 50% would be a substantial variance. We're not looking at that with his request.
I think in the law, substantial is a relative term. So
Okay.
you certainly, you
I
can.
voiced my opinion.
Oh, you
so-
can. That's fine. That's what we're here for.
Okay, I don't think it's substantial, so that's me voicing my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone want to add anything else to the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. There isn't anything that has been presented before us that has indicated that the construction of the pool and/or deck would cause any kind of adverse impact to environmental conditions. Anyone want to add or comment on the fourth criteria? Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. Any comments on the fifth criteria? All right, with that, and the criterias, I would entertain a motion for denial for this particular, actually for both variances, both the pool and the deck.
Repeat that again?
I'll motion for the denial.
We're looking for a motion for a denial for both the pool and the deck. Matt is bringing the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Fred. All right, all in favor of the denial, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed to the denial?
I'm
Nay.
opposed, nay.
Nays, okay, thank you. All right. Thanks so much for your time and effort. Next is the Rotella application. Thank you.
Vote.
Whenever you're ready, Doctor.
Sure. So it's my understanding that the county denied this proposal for variance. Is that
Yes,
that's
so
correct?
before we, you're going to have a chance to continue, but the legal ramifications of that is for this board to grant the variance, there needs to be a supermajority. So it's majority plus one.
Not unanimous, majority plus one.
Supermajority. So it's majority plus one is a supermajority.
Okay,
Okay? Continue.
okay. So, you know, there isn't a lot more to add. I did bring Mike Palumbo with me, who represents Flaum, and Flaum's the management company for the building. But my plea is simply that I think I'm asking for 8 square feet of signage, which is not a lot, and I'm asking to list the names. And I would not be here because if I thought this was really important before, I would have asked at the time that I made the sign. And so I'm here as a consequence of sort of trial and error. And we have, patients who drive by the building. When you brought up, Mr. Reinhardt, when you brought up last time, about do they get, explicit directions and all, and we had all that stuff in place. I went back and looked at, there isn't anything more I don't think that we can do. It's on the website. They get reminded on the phone. They get something, emailed to them. But so we have that problem. I have, a trial and error where I have a brand new physician who's out there we're trying to start a regenerative medicine practice, longevity practice, and nobody knows she's there. It's like I can't. And so I believe that I'm going to use the majority of the space myself, and I may maybe not even, I'm hoping that the lines aren't so small, like on, this picture here. I'm hoping that maybe there's one less or two less lines if I end up occupying the majority of the building, but it certainly wouldn't be, anything more than that, if that. But it just helps me delineate my business. And, I have a huge investment there. And I want to make this successful, and I've been successful in most things I've done. And I don't feel like I'm asking for a lot. When I looked at the last variance that was granted for signage at the Victor Crossing sign, you have a copy of this. They were asking for 104 square feet, which was like 84 square feet over the 20 allowed. I'm just asking for 8 square feet. I'm just asking to just delineate myself, and I don't feel like I'm asking for a lot. It pains me to drive there and see like all the other signage around me that's leading up to me and after me, and Mike sort of reviewed it and looked at it. And so I don't have much to add. I just, just kind of pleading with you guys to see it my way and see that we're trying to, create a business here, and it's not just an ordinary business. It's it's first rate. I have a national and international reputation. This is going to be a destination, and I am just asking for a little better signage. That's all.
All right, so on the last note, I can't speak for the board, but I respect everything that you have done and are doing. Fantastic work.
Right.
However, if we start treating people differently than everyone else, simply because for what they have or what they haven't done,
Right.
it cuts against the grain of the law.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
I understand that. I feel though, and I get precedent and all that, but I feel like I'm being treated differently than every sign I drive past. Like when there's very few that I can compare my sign to than all the other signs that exist.
go ahead, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so that's just the feeling. The feeling is like, I have a competitor who's not even a quarter mile away from me that's got this. I know it was pre-existing, but he's still my competitor, and the sign is sitting right on the road, and it's 30 feet high or something. It's huge.
I really would like to believe that this board does everything that they possibly
Right.
can to treat everybody as fairly and as equitably as we possibly can.
Mhm.
So, Matt had brought up at the last meeting the signage that's currently on your building.
Right,
And I have a copy of it,
right.
so I'm sure you're aware of it,
Yep.
right? And it says, and you can have the copy of it, the medical spa, and it looks like it's a Q.
Right.
If it's a logo but
It's a logo, yeah.
So when I look at the code, and as I dig a little deeper into it, what I can't tell, and I'm trying to get it consistent with my understanding of what you're going to use the building for, multiple tenants or a single operation? I think it's multiple tenants, right?
It's multiple tenants. It could be different businesses that are under like,
What is then the medical spa with that Q? What is that?
that's the business that's on the first floor there. It's the primary business when you enter now, the front
Right.
door.
So, what I don't know, because it depends on the size of the sign on the building itself that you're permitted to have, is dependent upon the tenant and the amount of frontage that building takes up for that particular tenant. So, it's a bit of an unknown that I'm working with here. I'll read the section of the code if you like. But when you tell us that you're not getting adequate advertising on that monument sign, you have two signs that are on 96, one facing 96 and the other facing north, I guess. So you're getting some advertised for as, how do we find the medical spa? There's some good signage that you already have. And what I'm not clear on, and I would like to have the code enforcement officers in here, is can you have that medical spa sign and a monument sign? Because what you're supposed to have is if you have tenants there in the building, like you said you're going to, they're supposed to be on the building itself. So you it sounds like you want both. With the monument sign, with the tenants on the monument sign, and you want the signage, and potentially you want signage on the building for your tenants.
Well,
That's asking a lot for what the code says that you can do.
yeah, I didn't intend to put more signage on the building, because I think it's just going to junk it up. The signage, that Q thing, you see it now because the leaves have fallen off the trees. And, tonight as I was coming up here, I could see it clearly. But when the leaves are on the trees, you don't see it. You just don't see it. You don't see it till you pass it, so.
It's still there. The signage is still there. And I don't know what the math is in our neck of the woods. I think leaves start coming out in May, and they're gone in October. Maybe you're getting the visual more than 50% of the year. I mean, if we want to go down that road, it's a bit of a slippery slope to look at. It's like, well, I can't see people can't see my sign, so therefore I should get a monument sign with tenant signs on it. And
But that's not that's part of the problem, it's not the only problem. So within the medical spa, there's a business, the Longevita, right, which is a regenerative medicine business. It's not part of the medical spa, it's a separate thing. And it gets no recognition. I've had a physician who's, been salaried for a year, and it's, she's just not identifiable. It's not working. And I'm not going to put her name there, because if there were 3 physicians, I wouldn't put all 3. But I'd like to put Longevita there to identify the regenerative medicine practice, So, and I just think that even if I had 4 tenants, I wouldn't put 4 names on the outside of the building. I just wouldn't do that.
you saying that you're not going to do it doesn't guarantee that if you ever sell that building to somebody else, that they're going to have the same attitude and
Right.
desire that you have. It's granting a variance, the term is, it runs with the land. So whether you own it, you
Right.
sell it to somebody else, or anybody after that,
Right,
that granting of the variance stays with the land.
right.
There's another piece of the code I'd like to point out as far as, unless I'm mistaken, how many entrances there are to that building. There's 1, right? And the code says that you can have 2 signs in the building if there are 2 public right-of-ways.
Well,
I don't see that.
there's an
There are 2
entrance,
there?
there's an entrance from the back and the front, yeah.
Okay.
Like the front entrance goes straight through to the
Okay.
back.
All right, well, that clears up that one. All right, so I've been rambling on a little bit. I'd like to hear from the board with their questions, and we'll go from there, okay?
Do you want to say something? Can I have one other?
Go ahead, if you have more points to make, go right ahead. No, you can stay. Oh, no, I'm sorry, you have something for us, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
My name is Mike Palumbo. I'm with Flan Management. We manage the facility for Dr. Quatella. On the first page you'll see is, I'm sure, pretty familiar to all of you. It's the pylon signs that exist from Target down to just before the thruway. The one thing I will point out is that I notice, other than most of the retail shopping, High Point actually has 2 tenant directories, one on 96 and then one on High Street, which seemed interesting to me. But more importantly, and I'm sure the one you're interested in, is the second page, which covers from the thruway into the village of Victor, going down Fishers Road, going down 251, up past Rowley Road, just past the car wash where the veterinarian office is. And these are all tenant directories that exist from the thruway down to the village.
All right, can I stop you with some?
Sure.
Anything in the village?
No, I understand. It doesn't matter. Got it. I'm well aware of that.
You're kind of
So then we can
dumping on
focus,
irrelevant
we
information.
can focus on the ones in the town then, that's fine. Yeah,
Beautiful,
it's just to highlight, because I noticed that Ontario's, the county had something about tourism along the 96 corridor, and they were concerned about that. I was on their website, although I didn't see any businesses in their tourism section that highlighted anything on Route 96 in the town of Victor along this section of the road, or even any of these side streets. So I just wanted to point it out, that there is quite a few in the town. Like I said, on 96, down Fishers Road and 251.
So we can, I think, address some of these. We had some research done. The 7353 State Route 96, that was area variances granted in 94. 7375, sign permit was issued August 19th, 2003 to replace the existing sign. It's a monument sign 4x7. It was found did not find any permits issued for the original monument directly signed, but it all predates the existing code. The Eastview Commons sign, approved by the Planning Board May 12, 1998. High Point retail sign, approved by the Planning Board as a part of the site plan approval, November 9th, 2016. Cobblestone Court sign, area variance granted October 5th, 1992 for the sign directory, and it predates the existing sign code. Victor Crossing, monument sign received an area variance for July 20th, 2009 for height, 24 feet. It was for 24 feet, and I guess 10 feet was, let me read that again. Monument sign received for an area variance on July 20th, 2009 for height, 24 feet where 10 feet is allowed. Area requirement, 104 square feet was permitted, 20 square feet was allowed for identifying individual tenants. 7273 State Route 96, sign permit was issued 1994, predates the existing sign code. So the one that I think you have at least some footing on is the Victor Crossing sign. All the other ones that we had touched on predate the code. So certainly the town can change the code, and we have to deal with the current code. A current application deals with the current code. Hopefully that makes some sense. Go ahead, if you have other
No, I was
points.
just going to say that it seems like the board has been willing to grant quite a few variances, as you just read off. So I don't know that this changes the nature of the neighborhood so much that it would affect anyone. And I understand there's been changes in the code, but I'm just saying that this board has granted quite a few variances along this corridor, and most recently the crossing. So just wanted to point that out.
Sure, and the sign variances as opposed to other variances, bit of an apples and orange, especially when we're getting feedback from the county planning board that is very concerned and feel protective of 96 on over signage on that main corridor. So there haven't been a lot of signs. I think the history of this board has generally been is if they are going to grant it, it's a minimal grant. The mall area is a bit different. Once you get closer and closer to the village,
Agreed.
It gets less and less and more difficult, if you will, for more signage for the theory of retail people or customers can't find it.
Right.
I believe everything on the first page here, I don't think required a variance. I think they were part of the planning board processes. I've been on the board for 15 years, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of signage variances we've granted as a supermajority on this board, really in that Route 96 corridor. You're right, there's things that are there because they're previously existing and non-conforming, and we've had others come in front of us with those and try to add a tenant, and we've said, nope, you gotta make the entire site, or not the entire site, but the sign now conforming. And I get it, there's a certain amount of, consternation and cost associated with that, and, I know you talked about, you just wanted the 28 square feet. I don't think we're just talking about the 28 square feet. There's the height, there's the 28 square feet, and there's the, hey, we'd like to make it a bit of a monument sign. I don't want to take my turn just yet, but you presented a lot of, it's a very good package here, but I think and it's overwhelming information, but as I look at all of them individually, I think this entire first page, I don't think a single variance was required just because it's associated with the mall and the planning board process that the entire site goes through to do that as part of a larger
Right.
situation. In some of these others, as we look at them, again, you've got quite a bit in the village, and I know you've already agreed that the village is off limits, and it really comes down to a handful that maybe a size or is pre-existing non-conforming. So I don't really want you to feel like we're kind of unfairly picking on you here. It's really tough to get, by design and by code, to get out of code, signage on Route 96, because it's a corridor that has been deemed by not only the town, but the county is important, that we're trying not to just pepper with monument signs as cars are going down that road, 45, 50 miles an hour plus often, and it really isn't ultimately much better.
And we don't disagree with you. I would point out that one thing the doctor didn't mention, that as you're coming from the north, heading, let's say, south toward the village, there is a tree line of trees from the road all the way down between his property and the karate place. You can't really, even though he said you can see his sign, and I just drove it tonight coming down even in the dark, it's tough to see that north-facing sign, and you don't see his building until you're past that tree line, and at 50 miles an hour, you're moving pretty quick to be able to stop within 50 to 75 feet to make that right-hand turn into the property.
So you're saying if you had the monument sign
Well,
5
if
feet
you,
from the
that
entrance,
monument, that sign exists today, it's out there. What doesn't exist is the tenant directory.
do you think the tenant directory would really make an
I think it would-
incremental improvement in the ability
do,
for someone to
yeah.
make that right turn?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you're going to have a little bit of height, you're going to have a backlit sign that'll highlight the tenant directory. And
That
you'll see
sign
it
is-
because it's out by the
How far is that
road.
sign from the entrance?
It's as close to the road as what was
No,
allowable.
from the entrance, not from
It's
the-
right, it's right before the entrance.
That's what I mean. So by
About
the time I
5, 10
get there
feet.
and I'm going 50 miles an hour, I've had to also look at the directory and then pull my parking brake.
Yeah, but you'll see that
Make the
before you'll
right.
see the building, because it's out past the tree line. The building is
The
set back.
size of the lettering that you'd have to put on the directory sign to list all the tenants and their names.
There would only be
In
4,
20
there
square
might be
feet
4
or 28
tenants.
square feet.
Right.
Anyways, I don't
No,
want to.
I understand.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll certainly come back for more questions. Sarah, questions, comments?
Did we receive comments back from Adam regarding the Victor Jeep versus this sign?
I thought it was included in that. Victor Jeep was also approved through the planning board. The sign was.
Okay, so it doesn't need a variance because the planning board approved it?
Yep, that, it wraps all up in that.
So I guess my comments are, the county pretty much signs that are on 96 and 332, they pretty much deny them and send them back to the local boards. So it's very common to hear that denial. I think Mike did mention that the Victor Crossing sign would be the one that we would need to consider with the comparison here for this variance. Even though it was approved by the planning board, the Victor Jeep and this, to me, is very similar. I think the sign that you're proposing is very classy. I don't think that it would bring a different characteristic to the town whatsoever. I would be in favor of the sign. Of course, you have to have a supermajority, but I would be in favor of it. However, I would be in favor of limiting it to only 4 tenants. So, and then the resolution would specifically state only 4 tenants would ever be allowed. So I am only one vote, unfortunately. So, but that's my take on this. I think it looks better than the Victor Crossing sign. I think you have presented a great application. So that's all I have.
Sarah, just for clarification, the 4-tenant limit, that's for the sign on 96, the monument sign on 96?
That's the only application technically in front of us is a monument sign on 96. We can't think about what their potential would be for a different ownership where they
Right.
might want to put a sign here or a sign there. To me, the only application we can review is the application in front of us and not necessarily what future might hold.
That's absolutely true. So an applicant, if the variance is granted for limiting it to 4 tenants, would give them the ability then to put those 4 tenant names on the building itself, so they would have both.
I guess I would look to Adam and our code department to actually give us that full code interpretation as far as that goes. Because in that case, then he could technically have 2 if he currently has the medical spa, and if it's Q and the medical spa, is that not 2 different things, or is it the same thing? I guess that would be up to a code interpretation.
Which would fall into our lap.
Which to me, I would prefer to have Adam's take on that opposed to us making a determination and defining what the code is.
I think you're allowed to have both. I think.
Right, but the code is, as I read it, and it's in front of me, if code allows the tenant names to be on the building itself, if granting a variance today for the tenants on the monument sign, Dr. Smith could have his name or her name on the monument sign, and the code allows Dr. Smith's name to be on the building too.
But earlier you said that the monument sign size and the number is based on the square footage of the building and what, I mean, it's a contradiction at this point.
Oh, sorry, I misspoke. It's the business name on the building is the size of the size of the sign on the building, the face of the building, is dictated by the frontage of how much the tenant has.
Okay.
So if the tenant has 50 foot of frontage, the code then allows
50 square feet.
54 feet.
Okay.
Right, so I'm giving that's the possible ramifications of granting it here. There isn't anything we can do to say, hey, you can't put tenant names in the building, because you're right, it's not before the board.
Okay, so my understanding is that they are not linked. But if you're saying that the monument sign as well as a sign on a building are linked together, is that what your interpretation of the code is?
Yes, because we've always understood it to be, you can have one or the other.
You can have one or the other, but he has both already.
He has a monument sign. He is entitled to have the business name, the name of the business on the building itself.
Okay.
So it's going to be difficult to then say to a tenant, well, gee, you have your name, and the variance has been granted for your name to be on the monument itself, but we really can't do much if you want to put the tenant's name on the building as well, because the code allows you to do it. So we don't know if they're going to do it or not. We can't stop unless they say, no, we won't do that.
But I guess I'm still confused by it because you've said that the square footage of the sign on the building is based on the frontage of the road frontage.
No, the frontage of what the tenant occupies.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if
he's
it-
already taken up the whole first floor. Oh, he hasn't? Okay. Okay, I assumed that he was all the first floor, so there would really be nowhere else.
For all intent purposes, don't take this for what it is. The building's divided by a lobby.
I just can't hear you when you're speaking over there. And I want to make sure I get it all for the record.
On the first floor, the building is divided by a lobby,
Okay,
right side, left side. He occupies the right side of the building, 90% of the frontage. The other tenant is in the back corner behind his 54 feet or whatever it is of frontage inside the internal portion of the building.
okay.
All right, so just another quick point. There's two variances before the board. One is for tenant names on the monument site itself, and the other is requesting a 28 feet in height, where 20 feet total. So would you be in favor of both?
Square feet, you mean?
20 square feet. So he's looking for,
There's three variances. There's the business names to the sign, the height of the sign, and 28 versus 20 square feet. I'm just reading right here, and an additional variance for the height of the sign, comma, 28, requesting 28 square feet in total. So it must exceed 10 feet in height?
This isn't going up beyond 10 feet.
No, what's the height of the sign? Does it exceed 10 feet?
It does not exceed.
hold on, stop,
It doesn't
stop.
exceed 10 feet.
Please, sorry. If you want to speak, you got to come up to the podium, tell us who you are. It's going to get too chaotic if people just start jumping up like toast and saying things.
Sorry, Executive Director. It's, the height is 10 feet. It does not exceed 10 feet, so that's an error in verbiage. It exceeds 20 square foot in total by the size of it. So the height would not exceed 10 feet.
Okay, so now you're down to 2.
And so the only two applicant for variances, one was for adding the additional names to the monument sign and to exceed the square footage by 8 feet. It was not to, add additional building mounted directory signs. That code was not included in the application.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So, Sarah, you're in favor of
Yes.
granting both variances and requesting the applicant to limit it to 4 tenants?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Sarah, sorry, Donna,
Still yes.
you're still here.
Well, you're-
Questions, comments?
I have a question. You're saying there's only going to be 4 tenants on that sign?
I would agree to that, yeah. I can't agree to 4 tenants in the building, but I will agree that that I limit it to 4 tenants on the sign. In other words, I don't want to, the reason I say that is if I sell the building, then does that mean that who takes it over can only have 4 tenants? Maybe they can have only 4 names on the sign, but they may have more tenants, I don't think I personally am going to have more than 4 tenants. I'm probably going to be the major tenant. But I think, like what if I own 3 businesses and I put 3 of them on the sign? I'm still 1 tenant. What if the person who takes over the business, the office after me breaks it up into smaller components? They'll only be limited to 4 people on the sign, but I don't want to limit them to 4 tenants in the building. Does that make sense?
Understood.
Yeah.
If the variance is granted for 4 names of tenants, and you want to have however many tenants in that
Right.
building, that's your business.
Right.
No, not yet? Not yet, thank you.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Matt, questions, comments?
Sure. I really think you need to revisit the branding for the whole site, is my opinion. I believe, and I want you, like every other business, to be successful here in Victor, and we all do what we can to try to to try to help. I think you have a branding problem, not a code problem. I've seen other medical facilities and centers establish themselves as a destination, whether it's Cross Keys or Cedarwood Office Park or Hellendale Dermatology and Medical Spa. And then in there, once you get onto the site, there's a directory either on the, on the door or when you walk in that kind of talks about, well, there's an acupuncturist, there's a this, there's a that. And these other businesses or tenants are in there. I really don't think you've tried that model yet. I know you've called it 7255 East or something to that effect, and there's the medical spa on the top. I mean, I very easily get your location just by entering in the medical spa anywhere near Victor, and boom, Google takes me there. And so anyone who's got a smartphone, again, if you establish the name, whatever you want to call the site, whether it's the medical spa or whatever, I would be in favor of a larger sign, the 28 square feet, for that, establishing the name of the destination, so that anyone, regardless of the tenant, you could say, I'm such and such at the medical spa or at that destination. I would be in favor of a slightly larger monument sign for that, but I don't think having the directory is going to help you out one bit next to the road. I really don't. I know there's others, in a lot of these cases, there's monument signs, but you can't even see the building of the business where there's the monument sign. And so I think where you are in the amount of online presence and the fact that you're like you said, an online known presence, that it's really building a brand around that and then having individual tenants under that. I really don't think you're gonna benefit from having a directory sign that's not gonna be very large, right by the road, also right by the entrance. By then, it's already also too late by the time they've seen it. But I would be in favor of a larger monument sign that is helped you establish a presence there as again, I always say Cross Keys or Cedarwood, because that's where I usually end up for wherever I have to go. And then once you get on site, then it's easier to find their particular practitioner. That's where I am with it. I feel like it's kind of being over-engineered and over-thought out a little bit, but I really do think it boils down to more of a branding issue than it is with the code. There's plenty of examples that follow that. If you came to us after really trying that, and you had that empirical data, then obviously I would be more open-minded to it, but I don't really think you've done that yet in your marketing strategy. I think, and you talked about it, right? The 7255 East, or I'm probably getting the number wrong, but was what you tried initially, and that didn't necessarily go the way you wanted. But I think rethinking that is the way to go. I don't think you're going to see. I don't think the benefit to the applicant in the community by granting this type of variance is going to benefit anybody, in my opinion.
Fred?
I parked to the east and to the west and across the road and drove in, looked at it from every direction. It's a nice sign. It's well back from the road compared to a lot of them. All applicants seem to want to have the business name on it. I don't blame you for asking. And I'd be in favor of cutting it down a couple feet and put 4 or 5, I don't care how many, names of the individual tenants on there. Talking about 4.
Right, so you're
4 is good.
You're thinking more like in Sarah's point of view.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think that it's going to be a big visual negative, visual impact. Whether people see it or not, they want it. They ought to be able to have it. Many other places, the times that it was approved and other circumstances don't really seem fair in a way to this application. In fact, I didn't even know the sign was there. And I watched the building being built. So I don't think making it a little bigger and putting the names of the tenants on, if it helps, fine. I don't think it hurts a thing, so I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank
Instead of
you.
being 10 feet high, make it 8 feet high, and whatever you put on there is fine.
Okay. I have some thoughts. So some of the tree line issues that you mentioned, I think some of it's self-created. There must be 5 to 6 trees you planted right in front of your, whose are those? You're shaking your head no.
We're talking about the ones in front of the building, not in between.
There's nothing high in front of the building. If there's any
Are
trees,
there-
it's on the other property.
No.
This was a cleared lot. We put some small pines up, but that's it.
I'm going to show you this color photo. I took it today. That is your building, or the doctor's building. Yes? Okay. Yep, and I'm going to circle that. That tree, if I'm not mistaken, is on his property. And it appears that those trees were planted when that building was constructed. My point is that you or the doctor or somebody had those trees planted on your property that is in line and potentially blocking the visual sight of the monument sign that you want bigger.
Mike, I have
Take
a
it
question,
back to
I have a
the-
comment in regards to that. Are we sure that was not a planning board requirement?
No, I'm asking, who planted the trees
The
there?
big tree line is somebody else's property line.
I'm talking about these.
I'm not talking about the big trees.
Talking about these.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I see 6 trees on the aerial.
All right, here's Google Earth. In between 96, he's talking about these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those are not an issue.
They are, back up, please.
That's what you're referencing, that
That's one of them. Who planted that tree right in front of that monument sign?
That was probably part of the agreement with the Conservation Board when we built the building, but that doesn't block the building. The tree line that we're speaking of is the one that's between the karate studio and the doctor's building. It runs from the road all the way back. That's what blocks the view of the building coming from the north heading
I
south.
understand there's vegetation that you're arguing between the martial arts place. I understand that. But my point is, I'm trying to make, there are trees on the property, on the doctor's property, that have been planted that.
It's part of the approval process.
Okay. All right, we're going to agree to disagree on that piece. The height of the building at each peak, where the signs are, the medical spa, how tall is the peak?
Again, I can't hear you when you're sitting down there.
35 feet.
I'm sorry. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I would say
More than 50 feet?
10, 20, yeah, somewhere around there, yes.
Okay, so there are 2 signs, the medical spa with the logo Q, 50-plus feet above ground level. To me, that's a significant height. You may have an argument, say, if it was a one-story building, that the sign was there, the trees are blocking it, 50-plus feet up in the air, when you have the logo, the medical spa Q, if you're telling your patients, clients, whoever's looking for the building, say, just look for the big Q. Look for the big N, McDonald's. Look for the hat, Arby's. That's part of the logo, right, is to find something simple enough for people to find it, if that's what they're looking for.
I would not disagree with you, but there will be other businesses inside the building that would like to have identification. So, that's the reason we're coming forward today, not to promote the Q Spa, But you're right, there is a queue there, it is on the building, but it's not the only tenant that's going to be in the building, not the only business that's going to be in the building. There'll be multiple businesses in there.
I absolutely understand that, but part of your argument is that patients, clients, whomever is looking for it, and this isn't just for this building, we would have to address this for everybody going forward to say, well, gee, you gave it to the medical spa, we want all these tenants too, up and down 96, because nobody can find us. If the argument is, say, look, we have GPS systems on most cars now, you just punch in the address, and it's going to tell you, Micah right, left, here, you're there, and you almost can blindly do it without even looking for any type of identification on the building. The car will tell you which way to go.
And that's good if you're a patient, but if you're not a patient and you don't know what's going on inside the facility, you may just drive by every day and never know that there's an opportunity for you to visit somebody that could help you. So, that's reason for tenant identification. It's like, go by any of the malls, if you went by Benderson's Mall and didn't know that Walmart and Kohl's and, the rest of those tenants are back there and they didn't have a pylon, people would drive by and never know it was there.
There's plenty of tenants that aren't on that sign.
No, I know, but the big ones are, and that's what drives traffic. Listen, at Flaw Management, we have 12 million square feet of shopping centers across 3 states. Every retailer wants to be on the pylon, right? We can't always accommodate them, but what we try to do is put the big ones up there because that draws the people in and then supports the smaller ones, almost like the mall, you get the anchors in there and then the small shop space benefits from that.
And that's the point I was trying to make
Right.
earlier with establishing a presence for, again, is there a monument sign in front of Cross Keys that lists all the tenants? Is there a monument, does a hospital have a monument sign in front of it that lists all of the practitioners and treatments there?
Yeah, so the 2 times where a monument sign doesn't work is if you have one person in there, and, then the monument sign would be that one person. You mentioned Hellendale. That's like a one operation business. But the other thing is when you have something like Cross Keys, you couldn't list every physician. That's a directory in the building. And this is sort of in between. It's not that, it's more akin to what he's saying, where you put the biggest players on the sign, and if there's a smaller player, well, then they just don't make the sign. That's more similar to our situation.
And Mike pointed out, and I didn't
Right.
pick up on it, you have an enormous sign, it's 45 plus feet in the air.
Yeah,
You can put anyone's name on it.
I understand that, and I just beg to differ about, if it was up in the air and that row of trees, which we negotiated with, I met with all the people from the conservation people on the property, and I said, is there any way that we can take down every other tree or whatever? The reason the trees can't be touched supposedly is that there's a stream or a creek running along the side of the property, but there hasn't been water in it as far as I've seen in the spring or whenever I've been there. And so those trees are higher than the sign, the Q sign. They're higher than that. And you just don't see that Q sign. And so, that's the thing. I understand that we planted some trees on the property. They don't obstruct the monument sign. They don't obstruct anything, really.
I'm quite in line with what Matt is suggesting as far as, you want a little bigger sign, okay. But when we go through this criteria and we're looking at the second being, can you achieve this by some other feasible means? You can. The code allows you to, you want to put tenants on the building, you can do that.
I understand, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't get the feedback from the patients where we've tried the things that you're suggesting. If I didn't have this secondary business that I'm trying to get off the ground, which hasn't changed in volume since January. I'm here for those reasons, not because I want a bigger sign. I don't want to spend more money on the sign, to be honest with you. If it worked, I'd be so happy,
I empathize with that. He didn't write the code.
Right.
We're given some latitude when granting a variance is, can we make the rule flex a little bit, because there's certain exceptions or certain things that are different than what the code intended to do. You brought out some pieces, right, yeah, this vegetation, and could this sign be bigger for people to maybe find easier, or the brand that you want to put in there, the 7255, or you put a big Q on there, okay. Your options, the code allows you to have other options that are viable options, feasible options for patients, clients to find that building when they're going down 96, to look at that building, no different than if they're finding any other. You got to take the mall out of the equation. You can't keep bringing that back in, nor can you bring in what's happening in the village. Those are apples, we're dealing with an orange here. Take it vice versa, I don't care what you look at. But we have to look at what is going on in that neighborhood that you're in.
And everywhere I look, I don't see a sign as nice as this, you know?
It's a nice sign.
Michael, can I just say something?
Go ahead.
You know, last time I left here, I listened to Matt talk about Google and you tonight talk about Google and the big Q 50 feet up in the air. And I picture Fred driving down the road. I picture myself driving down the road. And I'm not looking 50 feet up in the air. I'm looking for the number of the building. I'm looking at the sign at the road. You know, we have clientele that are 70, 80 years old. I've been working with my mother and my father-in-law. My mom is very computer savvy, but finding her way to places, trying to navigate iPhones and the car's technology, even my father-in-law. And I think it's hard to sum it up to think the world is, you know, capable of getting somewhere with, you know, Googling it and looking it up, because we do have several clientele that are above 50s into their 60s, 70s. And, you know, I would prefer to be looking down at the street, looking for the sign where I'm going, rather than 50 feet up in the air and not having my eyes on the road, looking for the signage out front. So it's just a comment, you know.
On that point, you looked at the criteria, did you not? The 5 criteria?
I did.
That comment that you have, where does it fit in?
It fits in safety as we're driving down the road.
There's not safety in the criteria.
There was safety in the criteria. Better signage, better identifying the building.
Which one of the 5 criteria that we're looking at, where does it say safety? If you want to look at the proposed variance and tell me where your comments fit into one of those 5 criteria, or more than one, I'd love to hear it.
The proposed variance criteria number 4. On the
Proposed
second-
variance will,
On the second letter of intent, criteria number 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environment conditions in the neighborhood or district. This is a benefit to the community, as the current signage creates a hardship in identification of the location while driving. The proposed variance will prevent a disruption in pattern flow and preventing the need to turn around in other neighboring driveways.
so what that 4th criteria is driving at is whether or not the proposed variance is going to have a negative impact on the environmental conditions. Streams or trees or something that's going to potentially impact that property or the neighboring property.
And I viewed it as, you know, safety of the traffic patterns there in front of the property. Of the neighborhood or the district, people turning around in other driveways, slowing down.
May I ask, what is so hard with having them tell patients or potential clients, I'm just going to make a name, this isn't the name I'm proposing, we're in the Q Medical Spa building, and you had a large sign that said the Q Medical Spa, that's larger than you're allowed, right by the road, it said the Q Medical Spa. And if you told patients, we're in the Q Medical Spa, like I'm in Thompson Hospital, I don't think you've tried that. that's what I'm trying, and that seems to be the model that's the model I know the town wants people to do. They want to establish large buildings like this as a destination, get you on site, and then from there, take you into the various different subtenants. And yeah, the Google comment, yeah, there's a certain percentage that don't use Google. I totally get it. I understand. But if it was something as simple as we're at the Q Medical Spa in Victor, and yeah, that is the monument side. If you missed the one that was 50 feet in the air in front of you, which maybe they did, it would be right there. Not a directory of, much smaller fonts to be able to fit within a 20 or 28. And I know she's dying to ask questions, so I'm gonna be quiet. That's just my kind of take on that.
I just have a question. You had some type of event at about 5:30, about 3 weeks ago, that you had, your parking lot was packed and the one beside it was packed. How did you get all those people to your destination?
Hi, I'm Pam Andrew, the spa director. We used social media to direct people there, and then we hung, well, I guess this time we did the balloons on the inside, but we did try to put some things outside. So we worked with Spoke, the cycling studio, to have them put some bikes outside. Our goal was to sort of draw some attention to the parking lot, to have something, I guess, active and different out there for people to see.
So you told the people that were coming to look for that Spoke bicycle?
Well, we advertised that we were going to have an outside live ride that people would be able to see, so we wanted to sort of call attention to that space. So something, I guess, again, where people were active and outside and sort of a little bit different, so that people would be able to see it.
Invited by media, social media?
We mainly used social media for...
To come to this event?
Yep. So we had everybody sign up through Eventbrite.
Okay.
Anyone from the public want to speak for or against the application? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Rob Crompton from Eastside Martial Arts, next to you guys. A few years ago, I had to come before the board here to do a variance for a sign that we had in the building because we use 7,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet of the building, but we had no front. And so the town codes permitted us an 8-foot sign, which from 50 feet away would be difficult to see. We were able to agree upon a 17-foot sign, and it says a big part of getting people in is our Nerf wars and dodgeball events that we do. On that sign, there's the Nerf logo, there's dodgeball logo, and I still would have people call and say they couldn't find, it's mostly birthday parties, but they couldn't find us. So I got these, flags that I put out, that said Nerf wars and various things, a whole bunch of them, and that helped. Usually I go out every spring and I take like a sickle and I whack those weeds, but I can't touch the trees because there's a creek there. Otherwise, all those trees would be done because 50 miles an hour, people are going by and they can't even see us until they get to us. And even though it says Eastside Martial Arts, when we have people to our parties and we say, there's a martial arts school, they're like, we didn't know there was a martial arts school here. So I can relate to the fact of being back so far. Out here where it's 30 miles an hour, and I know the town codes are different here, it's much easier to see things, but we're just looking for ways to get, people and let people know we're there. I fight to even have people know that I have a martial arts school there. And without the dodgeball and Nerf wars, we'd be done by now. And I advertise a lot, and I use social media, you name it. And especially with COVID and, things have changed, I can attest that us businesses are just trying to find as many ways as possible to be able to keep our businesses here in this town. And that's all I can say, I guess. That helps at all.
Sum it up. Are you for or against the application?
For. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else want to speak for or against the application? Okay. Any further comments before we move forward? All set? Okay. So let's go in reverse. Fred, is anything that you've heard so far, has it changed your mind about thinking on both applications?
No, I didn't even see the big Q sign up. It was so high, my roof of my car doesn't let me see it. Unless I have to get in a certain spot.
Okay. Matt, anything that's,
I'm still of the same opinion. I think it's branding related at this point.
so for clarification, you would not be in favor of allowing the names of the tenants, but you would be in favor of granting the variance to increase the size of,
I'd give them a 28 square foot sign to put one name on it. The name of the destination is what I would be in favor for.
that's what they're asking for, is 28 square feet. Donna, anything, I guess what I think where Sarah is, but let's,
I'm the same place Sarah's,
okay,
with the force.
all right. All right, so I'm leaning more towards Matt. So what we've often done is when this is happening, we'll give the applicant, if you think that there's other things or issues that we haven't touched on, that you want another opportunity to, hey, think about this, can we have another crack? We'll give our applicants every chance possible so that we're as thorough as we possibly can be. Because right now, it feels like we're going to get the size, the board will grant that size of the sign, but you're not going to get the supermajority for the tenants on the sign, it's on the monument sign itself.
Right. And I appreciate that. You know, codes are written historically in time, and sometimes, you know, events change. And I think right now, you know, I agree with your branding piece, you know, but Q the Medical Spa is an existing brand. You know, it's not like we haven't branded that. It's an existing brand, has been in place since 2002 or something. But you know, like, businesses are struggling right now, and COVID has changed a lot of things. And I think the reality of looking at a code in sort of in a vacuum and not looking at what's happening in the world right now, we're all looking to make things work. I have a successful business, but I've invested, you know, close to $4 million there. And you just, you know, you've got to make every little angle work. I've got an angle now that's not working, and I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, you know, how do we make this work? I don't want to be here tonight. I mean, if this was working and things were working, but we have to look at everything. You know, the trees, I knew the trees were going to be a problem from the get-go. I just knew it, you know. I mean, when I drive up to the property, I drove past, and, you know, my mom is who owned the property originally, and, you know, we bought it from her, and she'd always say, you know, when you do this thing, you got to get rid of these trees. And I you know, met with the people, the conservation people on the property, and I went along with that. But they're definitely a problem, and, you know, maybe not all of them are a problem. Maybe if we take out the first 3 or 4, that may help all our situations here. But I think the plea that he's made is that every attempted business, do I want to put up flags saying, you know, facelift, Botox? And then I think that's going to look worse, you know. But I mean, like, you get to a point where you get creative, and so, you know, in the whole scheme of things, I don't think I'm asking for much. I understand that you don't want to open the floodgates, but I'm also saying that maybe this is a little different point in history, and we should kind of look at it that way. You know, our economy is not like great, and you know, I mean, it's, we're trying our best. We're trying to market, we're trying to figure out, okay, do we market to the Finger Lakes? Do we do this? Do we do that? You know, we want to try to be, you know, a destination, so we meet with the lake house. Can we have some kind of collaboration? We're doing lots of stuff, you know, but it's not like a huge, like, rocket ship taking off. It's not like that. It's very slow, losing money, you know, I mean, it's all those factors. That's why I'm here. If it was like that, and, you know, I mean, I wouldn't even think of the sign, you know, so I just think that, you know, think about it in the context of, you know, 2022 and everything we've gone through in the last 4 or 5 years, which is a little different. For 100 years, a little different. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, what I'd like to do is, I guess, take the known quantity piece first, which is the size of the sign itself, and run through the criteria. So that would be the request for, asking for 8 more square feet, a total of 28 square feet. First criteria, undesirable change would not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of the area variance. 8 more square feet for that location, given the condition of the vegetation. The applicant has pointed out, doesn't seem to be that big of an ask for whether it be branding or to put the address on so the client's patients can find it. Doesn't appear to have any kind of altering of or detriment to nearby properties by granting of the variance.
Also set back from the highway,
Setback from the highway.
40 feet back further than most signs. Almost every sign's closer to the road.
We can add that in there too, that's fine. Anyone want to add anything else to the first criteria? Second, the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. What's like Fred pointed out, the location of the sign further back from the right-of-way, as well as the current vegetation. Because it appears that the vegetation in some of the locations can't be touched. Anyone want to add anything to the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is not substantial, given that request for 40%. 40%, thank you. Would not be substantial. Anyone want to add anything to the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the nearby neighborhood or district. Not hearing anything by increasing the size of the sign that would have any kind of impact on the neighborhood or district. Would anyone want to add anything or comment on the fourth criteria? Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. The location of the sign and their, I'm struggling with that one, the vegetation isn't self-created. The alleged difficulty is not self-created. I think the vegetation and the location being further from the right-of-way. Would anyone like to add anything to any of the criteria or additional conditions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the area variance for the size of the sign being 28 square feet.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'll second it.
Donna, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's carried. So now on to the existing monument having names of businesses and tenants on the sign itself. And again, if I haven't said it, it all should be reflected that the County Planning Board determined that there should be a denial on both of those variances. All right, so the first criteria, an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of an area variance. The applicant was given an opportunity to compare and determine if there were other signs in the neighborhood or district. It was determined that, as far as the board could tell, that all but one of those signs, let me strike that. Let's say all but one of the signs either was pre-existing or was approved by the planning board. Was a sign, which would be Victor Crossing, that was approved. The other signs were either in the village, which don't apply, and/or the planning board had approved them.
There's two signs that could have a aspect to this. One is a two-unit mattress, the Lazy Boy and,
Stickley?
what was the second?
Stickley?
Huh?
Lazy Boy and Stickley, number 9 on the map they gave us.
And we approved that.
That was it was a different situation in that they gave up the sign on the side of their building, right, for space on the monument
Which
sign.
nobody knows. All you do is see the sign.
I'm just saying it's different, but to your point, it is a monument sign with 2 on it. But
And
it's,
there's another sign down at Blossom Road down here, east, that, if my memory is right, we said you can't have the names of the tenants. You can have the facility, the property name. Well, it's got names of the tenants on it. They've been there for a year, and it's right out by the road. Now, it's not supposed to be there, in my recollection, but it is there.
They did come in front of us, but I don't remember what it was. It was a while ago. Blossom.
So, we kind of treat everybody the same, makes it a little confusing.
I think you just said we denied them the variance to have the tenants, but they listed the
That's what
tenants anyways.
That's what I remember. yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
to me, that's a code enforcement issue then, right? We've got to reach out to code enforcement and have them take a look at it. I don't think it's a case where we've arbitrarily given someone a monument sign where we didn't do our due diligence, right?
Actually, I believe there was a sign on Phillips Road in the short amount of time that I've been on this board that we approved allowing additional tenants. I
Was it
realize
two-
that
was it-
that's,
Was it two?
I realize, I don't remember completely, and I realize it's Phillips Road versus Route 96, which needed county planning versus just our input, but I believe in the short amount of time that I've been here, we've allowed it on Phillip, and I think it's Phillips Road.
I do too, and I think it's a
A lot of I thinks.
two name. I'm sure it was Phillips Road though.
It might have been Fisher's. Yeah, it might have been Fisher's. I know it's down that direction.
It's over there, yeah.
Either Fisher's or
Yeah.
Phillips.
On a side street compared to 96.
Well, I think I know where you stand, Fred. Matt, is that going to change your thinking?
No.
So let's continue then. As far as the first criteria that an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties, other than what's been stated. Anyone want to add anything else to the first criteria? Second, the applicant can achieve by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. The code, as I understand it, permits the applicant to have tenants' names on the building. Third, or does anyone want to add anything to the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is substantial. The code doesn't allow tenants, so any more than the name of either the address or the building name itself, namely tenants, is going to be considered substantial. Fourth, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood district. I have not heard anything that the tenant names would have any kind of impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. Anyone want to add or comment on the fourth criteria? Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. Again, the code allows alternatives, and adding names onto the monument sign when the code does not permit it is self-created. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion for trying to think how to do this. If it's a motion for denial, in order for this to be approved, there needs to be a supermajority. So there would have to be a 4-to-1 vote.
So then I'll make a motion to approve it.
There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. So all in favor of approving this application, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right. So, any questions? Okay. Thanks so much for your time. We have this one.
The exact same one of this made, but with our denials on it, I think it would be
Yeah.
equally overwhelming. I don't think they realize how even getting an additional 40% on the sign.
All right, Kevin Hook. Thank you for your time and patience.
I hope mine isn't this complicated.
All right, you would like to put a structure forward of your home.
Yep.
So if you would, give us a summary.
I had a tape map with pictures that I drew on it. Do you guys have that? There you go. Perfect. So that's right where the shed's gonna be. And pretty much my house, everything is the front. My backyard is tiny, and there's a giant slope on the back. So if I was to put that shed out back or to the rear of the property, the foundation, it would pretty much take up my whole entire backyard. So pretty much I'm stuck with going out front someplace. It's on the other side, it's nowhere near the septic. There's a turnaround there, right where the shed's gonna be, that was put in when the house was built. So it's sitting right next to that turnaround. And then the actual front of the house is a giant, basically crater. It's a big slope too, so there's no flat ground there. So that's about the flattest place I can put it. Besides the back of the house, which would consume my entire backyard.
So are you saying it can go in the backyard?
But it would consume every bit of the backyard, yeah.
Let's try again.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I get the aesthetics piece. Lots of people, when they make that presentation, they say, I don't want to block my view.
Correct.
For us to understand, if it can be done, we need to know that.
It can be done, but I don't want to.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
All right. Just a heads up, the county planning board needs to take a look at this, so we won't be able to decide today. We need
Okay.
their comments
Yeah,
before we
okay.
can make a decision. All right, so we're going to do some fact-finding. It helps
Okay.
them, it'll help us. Our next meeting is December 5th.
Yep.
Okay,
So, any luck, they're going to come back. We'll have a decision
okay,
from County Planning Board on
got
what
it.
they think about the whole thing.
Okay,
November 9th is county planning.
got it.
board.
All right, I'm out.
Awesome.
It's 20 by 20?
Yes. Yep,
Right, go ahead, keep going.
It puts a whole new meaning to the term in front of the house. It's way in front,
I'll say.
and it almost blocks the house,
Huh?
really prominent.
Yeah,
As I was looking at it, I wondered if there wasn't a spot that would be less visually impacted.
right.
You looked at it from that standpoint?
I did.
Because it's
Yeah.
really going to look big.
Yep. I mean, the only other place that I could even think about putting it would be in the other part of the driveway next to the pole barn that, so next to the house, well, there's a pole barn on that side, and that other little driveway section right there, that's probably about the only other place I could stick it, but I don't want to lose that part of the driveway to the shed.
It's an equipment,
Yeah, I'm just gonna put my garden tools and stuff like that in there, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a big lot. It's
Big lot, but it's all,
bad it has to go right in the front.
it's all up front. I got nothing in the back,
Okay.
so, okay,
It's well off the road. It's jeepers, must be 400 feet off the road.
yeah, and I don't even think I don't believe any of the neighbors would really be able to see it. The gentleman down below me there, he's got the low ground, so he's not gonna see that.
Isn't there
Then there's,
From someone.
There's
a
two.
letter from one of the neighbors?
Hold on,
Oh, yeah.
stop. One at a time. Right, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
all right,
Well, do we have a neighborhood letter? Seems like two?
There's two.
Yeah, Mr. Cole questions us why, he seems to think that we like to grant variances and then is leaping into the, well, why is the shed or garage or structure forward of the building? It seemed to indicate we need to do a better job and not grant somebody.
ouch.
Oh, you should have been here tonight, huh?
But I think Amber addressed, and I thank you for that, where the variances that were granted and isolating them, I think, by year and what they were. The other one, I believe it was the Hefner family, wasn't in favor of it.
It's a legitimate complaint. You would get that anywhere, I think.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Agreed. And it probably wouldn't matter where I put it.
Well, I don't know about that, but
That's my guess. I know how people are.
Matt,
it
questions?
is well off the road. And you could buffer it with some trees. It
I agree.
was a condition.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I.
Yeah.
Matt, questions, concerns?
Yeah, and I think everyone would know I'm very consistent on this particular topic, and that section of the code really is there to apply to homes that are in the developments where the houses are in a
Correct.
row.
Well, and it's funny because
Putting something forward, and so when you have a site and a property like this, I mean, even if you look at it, there's houses forward of your front
Correct.
line. So,
Right.
to me, it would be within character of the neighborhood. I do like Fred's comment. We usually would like to see people maybe buffer it a little bit with,
Sure.
with landscaping, but I don't think it's anything that would be detrimental to this part of Victor, or certainly the neighborhood. The homes have a lot of acreage, they're off the road, It's really, where is the front of the house really, right, because of how the home is
Correct.
oriented, so.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because I actually looked up the code because I'm in insurance. I'm an appraiser for an insurance company. So I looked up the code to read it. I go, well, what do they call the front of the house? Well, it doesn't say that. It says rearward of the rear of the property, I think is what it says, right? I
No,
believe.
no, so the
Something like that?
interpretation is, it's the front of the house that
Yeah.
determines, and how it's in relation to the
Road?
The access road.
driveway. So where's the
Okay.
access? So sometimes
Gotcha.
if your driveway comes out one road and the front of your house is, as far as the elevation of it, it would appear that, well, gee, this looks like it's the front of the house, but actually the driveway goes, that causes a problem. So
Yeah.
it really, the driveway dictates
Gotcha.
front of the house.
Got it. Okay.
Driveway goes about 3 different directions, so you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a private drive and
No
it,
choice.
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
okay with it. I would like
Yeah,
to
okay.
see it,
Just
have a landscaping buffer.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Donna?
I'm not okay with it.
Sarah?
I'm with Donna. So to me, you have almost 4 acres. So I would say to sway me, I guess, when you come back, I'd like to see like why you can't move it further back, closer to the house. If you had an acre, we might be talking about something different, but you're almost at 4. So just a thought.
Should I bring pictures next time? Because I can show you the big divot in the
Pictures are
front.
great.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
there is nowhere, any place else I'm going to put it is going to have to go farther that way down the driveway.
Could you reflect where the pole barn is too? I think you mentioned a pole barn.
It's right on, it's attached to the house. So the house actually has a pole barn attached to it, so the,
So is it where it comes up to the top of the driveway? Is the pole barn?
yeah, so right where the driveway ends, there's a pole barn and that pole barn's attached to the house.
Okay,
So they're kind of one.
okay.
What you've done, having survey maps, topo maps are great, photographs, we'll look at anything that you have for us.
Yep.
That you can give us.
Sure.
The easier it is to figure the thing out. We don't really like to guess at
I get it. You're not there, you're not looking at it. Got it.
things.
Yeah.
All right. There were good questions. I'm going to wait to see what the county planning board has to say before I let you go, though. Anyone from the public want to speak for or against the application? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Hefner. I'm at 7992 County Road 41. So I wrote the email that you received. Our biggest concern with this pole barn is aesthetics. The structure that size and, you know, with the height of the land, it's going to really stick out. When I pull in, it's going to dominate the landscape. It sits up really high, and it's big. It's a metal, obviously it's a metal pole barn, so we really feel like it's going to affect the character of the neighborhood. I do realize pole barns are in Victor, but I think, you know, there's a good location for them. This is going to sit right out front. You're also going to see it, it's going to dominate the neighborhood when you're just going down County Road 41. And that's not what we feel is the best interest of our neighborhood, so that's really all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Question for you.
It's not a pole barn. So, it's not a pole barn. You had the picture. Somebody had the picture.
Okay.
It's a
so
pre-built shed.
question I have for you is,
And it's not
Is the-
permanent.
question I have for you is the location of the proposed shed staked out yet?
Is it what?
Staked out?
No.
Whether So if you could do that.
Yep.
To address Mr. Hefner's point,
Mm-hmm.
so that whether we drive by, or certainly we'll give you a heads up, you may want to come out and look at it and get an idea of what his concerns are, that where it's located, how close is it to the road, can you see it from the road, et cetera.
So I've actually got gravel in the spot. I've already put gravel there in anticipation of putting it there. So there's a gravel pad there already in the spot where it's going.
Is it graded, or is it larger than what the shed will?
Yes.
All right, so back to the question, are you willing to stake it out and put those
Sure.
4 stakes in there so that
Sure.
flag them so we can see this is where it's going to go?
Yep.
How tall is the shed?
10, I think, 10 feet.
When you come back and you confirm that,
Yeah, I'll confirm that, yeah.
that would be great. Anybody have any other questions for the applicant?
I was just going to ask, the gentleman was, came up here earlier, does that change your opinion one way or the other? I know you said pole barn, maybe thinking it was a much larger structure. Does that help in your?
A little, but it's still a large structure right in the front of the neighborhood. When you first pull in, it's gonna be right in front. You know, well, our view of our neighborhood is just houses that you're gonna see when you pull in. I mean, that's, I think, what most people would like to see in their neighborhood is, you know, accessory structures in the back where you don't have to see them, right? This is the opposite of that.
Do you have a general idea where the shed is, the proposed shed is going to go?
Yeah.
Could you see it, presuming that it's built, could you see it from your home?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to get an
Yeah.
idea of, from the aesthetics and where it's located, and addressing your concerns about the location, the height. So it's going to help, I think, the board out quite a bit, is making a site visit, knowing where it's located, and then knowing where your home is, and doing some visuals about what can be seen from where.
Yeah, I would recommend a site visit and give you a
Very
good idea of the layout.
We
So-
don't have an aerial of this, do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, there it is. Your house is which one?
To the north, 7992. So my driveway is the long driveway that runs
There is a
parallel.
pointer on the
Oh,
stand if you want to
okay.
do so.
Yeah, so there's my house right there, and then I come in my driveway right here.
I see, so it parallels.
Yeah. So when I come down County Road 41, I pull in right here, and it would, you know, this is the high point of this property, so anything you put there is going to stand out.
And on land of long driveways.
I have a long driveway.
So it's true then, correct me if I'm wrong, if he put the shed in compliance with the code, you're still going to be able to see the shed from your home.
If he put it, he'd have to put it back here,
If he complied with the code,
right?
putting it behind the house,
Mhm.
or he could actually go next to the house, but in compliance with the code, as long as it's either at the front of the house or behind it, he's in compliance with the code. So if he's got a few locations that he could put it there. My question to you is, if he complies with the code, you're still going to be able to see the shed from your home.
The rear of his home would be to the north, correct? It would be,
This house is turned.
The rear is right there. Yeah.
And no flat ground back there, very little.
Understood.
okay. I guess I was
think
thinking the front of his house was
41
the
is an
south, based down
east-west
the
road.
driveway. Right, so I guess the way I was looking at it was the front of your house.
My house faces his driveway.
No, I understand it might face it, but technically from a code perspective, and if I look at, for example, right here.
Right.
The south, to me, I think, is the front. I know the code enforcement officers are much more specific than I would be, but to me, the driveway, if the driveway determines where the front of your house is, it's the south part of your house.
The front porch actually faces.
But no, it doesn't have anything to do with the porch. Yeah,
Okay,
I
right.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the way the code interprets
Where
the
the-
front of the house, we'll make sure we have the code enforcement tell us. But the way I think they would say is it would be the south, and therefore the north would be where it's supposed to go. So I could be wrong, but that's usually how they interpret it.
Understood.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add before we let you go? You will have another chance, so if you have more things, exhibits, photographs, have at it. You certainly are welcome to bring as much as you like. Awesome. Very good. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you
December 5th.
December 5th.
Yes.
Good. Thanks. Okay, moving right along. Rob Crutchen? Sorry. 915 Raccoon Run.
You were a twofer tonight.
You're
I'm a twofer.
winner out of this.
First, I think.
So you would like to put a shed forward of your house.
Correct.
This instance, you do live in a neighborhood.
When you say shed, you mean greenhouse, right?
Both. It's a split. So half of it is a shed, the other half is a greenhouse.
All right, so it's a 12 by 24 structure forward of your home,
Correct.
and it's in a development.
Correct.
What else would you like to tell us?
Okay, so several years ago, I had called the office here, and, because I was considering a 40-foot tall biogeodome greenhouse, and
40-foot tall?
yeah, and about 20 feet, no, sorry, 20 feet tall, 40 feet wide, sorry, I got that backwards. And at the time, because it wasn't considered a permanent structure, they said I wouldn't need any kind of permit for it, and it wasn't going to have concrete. So I assumed that was the case, which I shouldn't have. I asked a few people that are home builders in this area, ordered the shed, and had it built. It's a $12,000 shed, and I don't list it on here, but the purpose, well, I do, but not in detail. The purpose of it is to house a pretty extensive bonsai collection in the shed part of it, to winterize these 80-plus trees that I have, instead of using my garage, which I've outgrown. And the other side would be to do tropical trees and to grow vegetables for my family during the winter. So I talked to another friend who's builds in all the towns around here. He said, you better make sure, because it might have changed. So sure enough, I did. Found out that I needed a permit, and started to do the research, not even knowing that it can't be within 75 feet of a creek. So we have a natural creek that runs behind our house. It's approximately 77 feet from our back door, which excludes our whole backyard, which is probably half of our property. To the east side of the house, as you face the house to the right, is a small area. There's several small trees in there. It's not big enough to go there. To the west side of the house, we have our septic tank, which leads to our leach fields, which we just recently had redone. And that leaves the front yard, which is approximately the closest corner. It's not parallel with the house, but slightly at an angle. I think, not this picture, but one of the others that I sent. And that's so that it picks up at least 6 hours of full sun, which it needs.
Mind real quickly with the red laser,
yep.
just show us where on that map?
Yep.
I don't have anything that actually puts a dot.
Approximately right about there. It's about 23 feet from the house.
But it's still 40 feet?
Oh, no. That's 24 feet long and 12 feet wide.
All right.
And it's approximately 45 feet from the road. For the farthest, the closest end of the house would be approximately 45 feet from the road. Anywhere else, really, because of our neighbors, these are my neighbors here, our trees, which I think we all like our privacy, would block any sun. only get a few hours of sun in our, I took some pictures today, actually, but I didn't get a chance to print them. Other than the front, there's no other part of our property that I see that we can house this, nor would it get enough sunlight. But that was my intent, was putting it there before I found out that I needed a permit. So, trying to think if there's anything else. And in fact, putting it on the side of the house, I don't understand what's the difference where it says 75 feet, but it also says 100 feet? What's, someone explain that? Because if it's 100 feet, then the only place would be the front yard, that it wouldn't be within 100 feet of the creek.
For what?
21130, environmentally sensitive land. No construction or impervious surface shall be permitted within 100 feet of the boundary of a wetland or within 75 feet of the center line of any stream having year-round flow, which is our backyard. So 100 feet from it, but 75, it's, our house, like I said, our back door is 77 feet to the creek. So, but what's the 100 feet? Does that mean?
It's at 100 feet from the
wetlands.
It's a creek that runs into like a big open area that's got cattails, and then it flows back out again.
The 100-foot setback line reaches to the back of your home.
77 feet to the back of our home.
You're just saying, that's why you can't put it in the backyard.
Right, I
Yeah,
get that.
and
What I'm trying to figure out is where I'm.
Well, if
I'm
it's
looking at the
100 feet, if it's 100 feet, because that's what I don't understand, what's the 100, what's the 75? Because if 100, then it's definitely only the front yard that I could do it. If it's,
on your tape map. Where the 100-foot setback line is from.
because 75 feet, I'll use the pointer here, the only place that's not 75 feet is right here and right here.
I'm looking at the survey map.
Yep.
I understand what you might think on where the measurement is,
Yep.
but when I look at a survey instrument
Yep,
that you submitted,
yep. That's exactly where I want to put it.
you're disagreeing with the survey map that the 100-foot setback line?
No, I'm asking that the 100 feet, does it have to be 100 feet or 75 feet from the creek?
Is it federal wetlands?
It's, my understanding is a tributary of Rondequoit
Wetlands
Creek.
and your creek are two different things.
Okay, so it's a creek that runs through our backyard, basically, at
That
this
would be
point.
70.
It was a big pond, it was a creek that went into the pond, but that pond over years is filled in with silt. So it's basically, at this point, just a creek.
Tell you what, let's hold that thought a little bit, because I think there's somebody here that's going to help us with what all this means.
Good,
Keep going.
okay. And I think that's it, at this point anyways. Is there anything I'm missing, or?
Oh, you can, I can't tell you what you're missing. I don't know what you know.
Are you sure you're staying away from the front setback from the road?
Is 45 feet?
I don't know what it is on that.
Yeah, because on that map there, our house is 60 feet from the road, and I have the proposed shed 23 feet from, the closest part of it is 23 feet from the house. The farthest is 35. So that would make it 45 feet from the road. My understanding is it can't be within 40. Am I correct?
Have to look that up.
And by the way, one last thing,
I thought the back was 35, 40, and the front was 60.
okay, well, even better. It
Oh,
goes
wouldn't be
about,
better for you.
it goes about 5 feet in front of our house. So of that 24 feet, about 4 or 5 of it would be slightly in front of the corner of our house. And it does match our house, same color. I think that's it.
Right,
So-
you're going to probably come back.
Okay,
Or I ask questions. I think there could be somebody here that could help us with the environmental piece and Does anybody have any thoughts on how close he can be or what he can build on within the environmental conditions, the wetlands area? No? All right, we'll hold that thought then. Sarah, you have questions, comments, concerns?
No, I don't. I'm reading, I didn't realize, I never saw Adam's comments here, so I'm reading through those, so I
All right,
might
well,
after.
we can come back. Donna?
Oh, and I'm sorry, one last thing again. I have these trees, which I have about a few days left. So they're prepared if it's possible to have it, put up tomorrow. Otherwise, some of these trees could possibly die, because once it goes below freezing temperatures, and I don't think I can fit all of them in my garage like I did last year, because I have a lot more this year. So it's somewhat of an urgency. I don't know.
I'm not following. What do the trees you bought have to do with this application?
Without this shed,
Oh.
they might die. Right now, they're outside, and normally you bring them in right about now.
I think this is a major neighborhood question.
Okay,
There's nothing like it.
yeah.
Donna, did you have questions?
Yeah, can we hear from anybody in the audience?
Sure. Does anyone want to speak for or against the application? Come on up.
The latest meeting that's ever happened, or?
Close.
Oh, no.
No.
Been here till
We're getting there.
11:30.
It depends. We're not done yet.
How you doing? My name is Jerry Sprague. I live at 920 Raccoon Run, which is kind of diagonally opposite side of this road from his property. I've lived there for 30-ish years, and the house was built in 1971. And when I moved there, I was kind of under the understanding that the design of the neighborhood was basically, 1.5 to 2 acre plots that were set up with structures to be back quite a distance off of the road, which they all are. And so my concern, I guess, is just having a structure like that out in the front of the house, which none of our houses have, aesthetically, to me, is not in character with with the neighborhood and the way the neighborhood was originally designed to be, in my opinion. So it's more of an aesthetic thing, and once you start making exceptions to that kind of scenario, then everybody could then apply for a variance to put something out in their front yard, which I'm not too thrilled about the idea of that being. So I would definitely be against it, just because of the aesthetic nature, and it's right in my face.
Okay.
It'll be right in my face every time I pull out of the driveway, and I'm against it. I'm well aware of the limitations of this property. It's been an issue with that property since I've been in the house, even when they tried to sell it a while back, because it has so many limitations to it, and I have no idea about these environmental issues with the Arundecoit Creek that runs behind the house and all that business. I know nothing about that aspect of it, but my concern is more about having the things plunked right in the front yard, and for me and other neighbors that are sitting behind me here to see all the time, I appreciate the situation with these probably expensive bonsai trees, but that should have been worked out in advance of building a structure in a front yard and not having approval to do it, and whatever's required there. So that's my issue. I'd be against it because of the aesthetic nature, and I think it would just change the way the street looks when you drive down the street.
What I'd like to do is, go ahead. Thank you so much. I'd like to hear from everybody. Instead of you being a little bit like toast and popping up, hear from everybody, and then I'll give you a chance to address all of those concerns. Anyone else want to speak for or against the application? Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Tony Carfano, 905 Raccoon Run. I'm the property just, I guess that would be west of where Rob would like to put this. I'm kind of along the same lines as Mr. Sprague. Just having something like that close to the road
I just don't think it would be good character. I mean, if I was to say I want to put a pole barn, 20 feet off the road and put a driveway in there, I don't think the neighbors would appreciate that either. I think it's just going to change the look of the neighborhood. The creek thing, I don't understand. Maybe there's a way you can get some kind of waiver for that. I don't understand why a creek would be bothered by a building. I mean, I think the neighbors would be bothered by the building more than the creek would, so
Tony?
I think you got to look that way.
Sorry.
Oh.
It's not permitted to
Oh,
ask him.
I'm sorry. All
You
right.
can ask us questions,
Okay.
and then if we figure out that it's a worthy question, then we'll ask.
I was
it.
just,
Got
yeah.
it.
Okay.
Understood. Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Anyone else speak for or against? Yeah, come on up.
I've been sitting too long, guys.
Sorry.
Susan Stelling, 930 Raccoon Run. I live right across the street from that house, and I think that it would be a good idea for us to see pictures of the structure. I don't think it's a structure that we think it is. I think it's like an addition to the house. It looks like, to me, because I've seen some picture of it. So I don't know if you have pictures of it?
We have, I think it's the proposed, there we go.
It looks different than that,
All right, then
slightly different.
I'm going to ask you to, I can't hear you from way back there, that's one. So if you have anything else that you want to add, then.
No, but I would like to see the way the house would look with it on, with that, it looks like it's an addition to the house, and it looks like it fits in, but I think that would help you all to see how it would work with the community and my neighbors here, too.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
comments. Yep,
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now come on up. Let's go
Yeah.
back, move forward. You submitted pictures, but that's not what it's going to look like.
Well,
Why
when-
did you send them to us then?
Yeah, when we first started this, we didn't have it wasn't built yet, so I couldn't, and this was the first type that he's done. It's a Mennonite who's building it. I have them on my phone, I don't know if that helps, the actual pictures. And I don't know if there's a way to screen them on.
So I think what we're going to have, we're probably going to ask you, we're going to have you come back, and I get the piece of it. I know you're disappointed, but I hear when you tell us, like, well, I have to get the trees inside. Bristol's right down the street has loads of trees that they leave all winter.
These aren't little, yeah, that's right. Well,
If there's a will, there's a way.
Sure.
Maybe you can help temporarily release some space from them or something, maybe there's.
I'll have to clean out my garage and.
Much, much bigger piece that we can't seem to answer here is the environmental issues. The last thing any of us want to do is start guessing on where can you or where can't you put a structure. There's different kinds of environmental easements. We've had wetland issues before. Some you can't even touch. If a tree falls in it, you got to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Much as you want to go get it.
Yep.
So last thing we need is guess at it. Is it state? Is it federal? Is it local? We got a whole bunch of questions.
Well-
Go ahead.
Few things, so trees come up to the end of our street on both sides. So really, the only people that see this are the two neighbors across the street. And I tried to have it match the colors of our house so that it would, and I didn't think of, I have a black and white printer, as you can see. But when he sent me these pictures here of it done here a few days ago, I should have clicked and printed out those color, or gone and had them printed out color. But that's why I put them on my phone, hoping that, I could just show everybody, including these guys, the.
So that was an okay way, but a better way maybe go to Staples.
Yeah.
Have a color printer, get some printed out.
Okay.
And have it some better visuals about what that shed is going to look like.
Okay.
And we need to do research, not you, we.
Yeah.
More research on what kind of environmental issues are there. How close can you be to that waterway? The significance of it. Again, And there's multiple issues this board has dealt with before on whether or not fences or structures or anything can go into those tributaries. And we have to be very, very sensitive and careful what goes in there.
Are you allowed to put a structure over a leach field?
That's a good question. Our code enforcement officer isn't here. I could guess at it. I'd rather not. But it probably doesn't sound like it's a wise idea. Yeah,
You could call and ask them.
I don't know.
Next meeting.
Because it sounds, if I were to put it on the side over the leach field, I would have to think more about it, because it certainly wouldn't get nearly as much light, but I understand what these guys are saying about it being in the front of the house. It's not that I want to put it in the front of the house, it's.
The survey
I
that
think
you
that
gave
was-
us does not indicate where that leach field is.
It would severely hinder the evaporation process. I don't think you're going to find any buildings over top of one.
Oh.
I'd have to also determine for sure what the setback, front setback is. That house is already on the front setback. It'd be another variance.
So if you had some instrument that would tell us where that leach field is, because that's important, on whether, you heard the criteria, that whether or not there's a feasible means for you to comply with the code. And if it turns out, it's, I really like to put a shed in someplace, but I can't do it here, and here, and here, and here
Yeah.
for, not, it's more than aesthetics. A leach field is a good example. Building in wetlands that's prohibited is a reason. So those pieces, the more we can get clarity on what you can and cannot do as far as complying with the code and figuring out if you want to build build a shed, is what you cannot do for those reasons I just explained.
So if I were, the backyard is on a slant anyway, so the backyard, whether or not it's, the whole environmental thing really doesn't matter. So, but the only place that's not within 75 feet, because that's clear. The 100 feet I'm not clear about, is the side of the yard where the septic is in the front of the house. So if it's determined that the only place that this could go is the front of the house, then how would it just come down to a vote to you guys as to, whether I could or couldn't?
Those are factors. You heard the criteria.
Yep.
The way the law is that any one criteria doesn't necessarily defeat an area variance. So for example, if the board determines that the request for an area variance is substantial, that in and of itself is not fatal to granting the variance.
Okay.
Right? It's a balancing test. So if those other four criteria give it more weight than just the one where you did not meet, you still could get your variance granted. So
But
it's
it's
a
not-
long way of saying it depends.
But it's not, I think where he was going was if he was able to prove that you really can't build anything behind that house, then by default, he's allowed to build something in front of the house. That's not true. I don't believe that to be true,
No.
right? You'd still need.
No, but I would have a chance, if you voted on the variance for it.
You'd have a chance like everyone
Sure.
else would,
Yeah. And it wouldn't help if I provide actual pictures of what it actually looks like, especially to my neighbors, so they can see if it's ugly or not, and whether it detracts from the neighborhood or doesn't.
To point home a little bit, if you show that you couldn't build it anywhere but the front of the home, doesn't mean you can build a 40 by 80 shed.
24 by 12.
I'm giving you an extreme hypothetical.
Okay, got it.
That doesn't mean you can build whatever you want in front of the
course.
house. Right?
Yeah.
There are still limits, and you still have to comply with the code, comply with that criteria.
Okay. Got it.
And that's what Matt was saying.
Now, if they come back on the 5th, will it be determined that either yes or no, more than likely, and if so, would I be able to build it the very next day?
That's how it usually works.
Okay.
I'll say for me, this one is not a slam dunk.
Okay.
Right? We almost had the exact opposite situation before you, right? Where it wasn't in a housing development, where the code is really designed to keep the housing developments like your neighbors were describing, sheds from creeping into the front yard and structures from creeping into the front yard and keeping the aesthetics of that type of development. So based on just what I've seen and heard today, I don't see how I could support it, anything going in that front yard, even if you couldn't build it in the back. You knew when you bought the home that you couldn't build anything in the back based on
That's kind of me too.
the drawings.
And I would strongly, if you haven't been in that neighborhood, I would strongly recommend taking a drive in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an older neighborhood, and I think to the neighbor's point, very much, larger lots, lots of trees. It's not the prior applicant when it's a newer, it's not even a development, it's a flag lot that's further out County Road 41, so it's a bigger ask.
and you mentioned earlier, you owned East Side Martial Arts. Have you thought about maybe, there's a huge yard and back and stuff, I mean, is it
I rent
possible you
there.
could do something there, or you
I-
could work out a deal with the
I could-
landlord?
yeah,
to
possibly.
Put something back there
Sure.
or something like, I'm just thinking out of the box because you brought it earlier and I'm looking at it on Google Earth, like,
Is there a way to find out, like, before the 5th, that if I could put it on where
No.
leach field is?
Short answer is going to be no.
No.
If you want to find out, can I put a shed on a leach field? Get yourself an engineer to look at it.
Okay.
I think to Fred's point, he's going to probably, he.
So I probably wasted $12,000 here, it sounds.
It's probably not a good idea.
'Cause, like I said, I'm going by what it was several years ago. And
You can
I know
give our
this
code
system-
enforcement officer a call,
Yeah.
ask him, you're going to need a building permit, and if the code enforcement officer tells you, no, don't.
Okay.
I'd rather let the professional, whether it be engineer, code enforcement officer, give you the, yes, you can, no, you can't, instead of the board start guessing at it.
I'm assuming the floor is gonna be crushed stone.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine what evaporates from a leach field into a enclosed structure. I'm not quite sure you're gonna. I'm
Yeah,
just-
that was,
Applying
that
some
was
common sense.
another reason why I didn't want to put it over there.
Yeah, I
So we're gonna get in touch with someone from the, it's the environmental conservation, we got people. We're gonna find out for this property and that particular tributary stream, whatnot, how and where, what can you put on there? It just depends on how it's identified. Okay? Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
You had a comment?
Well, comment, question, I'm not sure.
Question?
Which it is, and this could be, I don't have any facts, obviously, so I'm just kind of talking off my head here. But, and it's, the house is located in a pretty sweeping curve in the road. And I know there's been issues in the past about this creek, and I don't know what those issues were and how they were resolved. But I have the perception that that house is closer to the road than the rest of our houses are. It's just a perception. I don't know if that's true. You'd have to look and see. And I'm wondering if that was because of the creek and some sort of a variance or whatever that took place to get the house built there in the first place, because it's just, if you look at his driveway, it's much shorter than any of the rest of our driveways, so I'm just.
The house is definitely on, like, right on the 100-foot setback, so they
Yeah,
probably.
so most of the
there's
houses are more than that, or a lot more than that, if you drive down the road and look at them. I suspect the reason for that is this creek thing has been a problem for that property since day one, And so I guess my point is that if the house is right on that setback and you're going to put something in front of it, it's really fairly close to the road visually anyway, without, putting a ruler to it. So I think I guess my comment still stands, I guess, is that thing will be sticking right out in front, as far as I'm concerned. And I understand all of his property problems there. He's got a fair number of problems with the septic field and the creek in the back and all that, but I just don't think it's in character with the neighborhood.
We're going to be back here in December, so you're certainly welcome to come back.
Were you gonna?
Does this go before the Ontario County Planning Board?
Come on. Were you able to hear that or not?
Yeah, I could hear it. And no, it's not going to
It's not
county.
going to.
Does it go before that board?
Nope.
Whether he will find out about the creek in the back
So I've written down to send them to Conservation Board, so our Conservation Board will
Conservation
look at
Board,
this
okay.
as far as the environmental
Yeah.
aspect goes.
Because I knew the owners, the original owners, and there was problems at that time too, but there was a larger, we used to have a lot of fun back there because the water, there was a lot of water.
Was
So
that
we had
Jar-
some, we had-
Jarmuth's
we had
house?
some good parties.
Was that Jarmuth's house?
No, it was Randy. Randy, he used to own the liquor store in Victor. Murdoch, I'm sorry, right. Yeah, it was Randy. Yeah. So, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
This doesn't sound too feasible, so if I were to just talk to my landlord on where the karate school is and were to put it in the field, am I assuming that I would be in the next meeting if I get the paperwork in time for the December 5th?
You want to be in the next meeting. if you
For
wanna-
for this
I wondered-
property or the other one?
Whatever the next one is, the December 5th.
The
right?
due date for that one is November 21st, so as long as you get everything in by then. I can't tell you if you need a
Okay.
variance for that.
So I would basically just do the same thing, here's where it's gonna go, here's where, if he were to lease me that space, or, then that would be the way to do it.
No, but then you wouldn't need to be in front of us, I'm assuming.
Oh, because it would be behind
I'm
the,
assuming you would need it, I'm just looking at it from Google Earth, there's plenty of room, it looks like, from what I can see.
as long as it's behind the front of the building, front
Unless
line of the
they come
building.
up with-
Follow all the codes.
Yeah,
You
unless the
have to
code
call and
comes up
talk
with
to
something that
them.
says it's gotta have a sprinkler system or something.
So I could find out in a couple of weeks if that would be,
I would definitely call and talk to code enforcement
okay,
and see if, in your landlord, but check with code enforcement to see if that's an option.
Okay.
Or something that you can do.
okay.
I know it's a commercial versus residential
Yeah, yeah.
district, so I don't know every single page of that by heart, so I don't want to send you down a wrong path, but it was just something that did come up that might be feasible, so I'd run it by code enforcement.
Okay,
Sure.
okay,
That
thank
sound
you.
fair?
Yep, sounds good. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
See you then. Any other business before the board? Kovic, we're all set?
Sure. Quick thing, it's election day tomorrow.
Yes.
Planning board was moved from tomorrow to Wednesday because of the election.
What time does
Here,
election, can you vote in the morning? How early do they open? Is it like 6?
6 o'clock.
6 a.m. to 9 p.m. as usual.
Okay.
6 to 9.
And then don't forget, on the 11th, Veterans Day Friday, we're closed here at Town Hall. Town facilities are closed, so everybody knows. And then we'll also be closed on the 24th for Thanksgiving and 25th also.
Very good.
So just a couple of date things to keep everybody in mind.
Good.
That's it. Thanks.
Thanks
Have
so
a great
much.
night.
Thank you. Are you friends?
Yes, there is a veterans.
No, I'm
Make a
late.
motion?
Very late. A motion to adjourn.
The veterans.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thursday.
Wanted to stay.
Thanks for your time. That's what I thought.
That's why, I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, oh.